So, Michael, I appreciate you joining us tonight. It's really been awesome, and I've enjoyed knowing you for the last couple of years. But we're both Hampton Sydney alumni, and so that's something that's a unique thing. In fact, I believe we were both Sigma Chi's, weren't we?
Sigma Chi.
That's it. I
still get their newsletter. I will say, apparently now they lead the fraternities in terms of academic performance.
Yeah, well,
I can say that probably helped when you and I left to make their chances better.
Well, I can tell you it did, and I can tell you from an academic standpoint, when I left, that probably also helped improve the chapter.
That's right.
But look, I really appreciate all that you guys are doing and have done in Rocky Mountain Mills, the good corporate neighbor that you've been. The mill itself, from concept to execution, has really been sort of a proof of concept for a lot of people in Rocky Mount that I believe has really restored faith, hope, and really seeing that market rate stuff really can come to a place like Rocky Mount and can be successful. So, I want to thank you for your investment. It's huge. I appreciate what you continue to do and how you continue to drive it. So, but I've got to ask you, why Rocky Mount? Why Rocky Mount Mills? I mean, that's it's an investment that dates back a little ways, and so let's tell me the Genesis story.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was all witting, but most of what we do is highly unwitting. It actually came to fruition back in the early 2003, 4, 5 when Dad came down. My father came down to speak at a chamber event. And while we were here, they brought us around and showed us different parts of Rocky Mount. And one thing they showed us was the mill. And we said, wow, what an amazing piece of property. And we were coming off kind of the high of American tobacco in Durham and the work we'd done there. And we thought, hey, if we can do it in Durham, we can do it anywhere. And just have fallen in love. We had fallen and continue to remain in love with the process of historic renovation. The process of, not being overly handsy in how you handle those buildings aesthetically, because they contain so much of the community's history and their story, and how you preserve that and help retell that in many ways, like Rocky Mount Mills has tried to do. And so we just fell in love with the building, and over years and years of trying to get it, we finally got it, I believe, in 2007, which, as you know, was a fantastic time to get new real estate. And it took us a while to come around to the plan and the approach, and we did it, and we decided, and here we go. And, a lot of what we do with this project and other projects is very much based on a long-term time horizon.
Right.
It's all about what this will be in 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years. It's not about immediate gratification financially or otherwise, and we recognized what we were doing was in many ways very novel in the Rocky Mount community, and a lot of communities in Eastern North Carolina and beyond, where that level of kind of quality of life investment hadn't happened from the private sector. And so it was in many ways, I refer to it as my father's senior thesis for his MBA, which is that, at the end of the day, we are focused on quality of life drivers, where we want to help be a part of creating a community people want to live in, because our kind of core thesis is that people's number one decision is where they're going to live, and that decision is driven by the community they can choose to live in. When you're looking at today's virtual workforce, that's more true than ever, right?
Absolutely.
There are people living in Rocky Mount who work for companies throughout the globe.
That's right.
Right? You can live anywhere you want to now.
Absolutely.
And so now it's a battle for how can I make the place, Rocky Mount or any other city, how can I make it a place people want to live in?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more.
That is like the challenge. That's the arms race, if you will, of today's economic development strategies is quality of life.
Well, that's absolutely right. Because one of the things that I'm constantly reminded from a practical application is, as we begin these economic development projects, and right now Caroline's Gateway has something in the neighborhood of $50 billion of consideration for development in our area, creating 40-some thousand jobs, and very impressive numbers. But I'm constantly reminded that if people don't live in the area, that economic impact is not as great as it could be. For instance, I'm told, and I've not vetted this out, but I understand from our step lady, Pam Gould, that we have approximately 20,000 people who commute into Rocky Mount every day in excess of 50 miles that make $100,000 or greater. Well, now the impact on a community of 55,000 people, just repatriating or patriating, call it 10% of that, from a services standpoint would be massive. I mean, just absolutely massive. And so, let's talk about what you're looking at and how you go about considering creating that community where people want to live. And from your perspective, it's been as a real estate developer. You've done it obviously in Durham and a very successful program, and you're doing it here in the Mills. But what are the types of things that you're finding that people really want to gravitate toward, and what creates that quality of life, that desire, that yearn to move into a particular community? Because I think that becomes the new conversation. How do we generate that as a community?
I believe that people's interest in communities is going to be measured largely by how aligned they feel with the values of the community, and how much they feel like they can have an impact in that community. And that's something that happens, that changes over time. But, one way I talk about Rocky Mount, and this is part of the sales pitch, is, guys, in many ways, Rocky Mount is a canvas that is wide open for paint, right? And if you have ideas and you have things you want to work on, Rocky Mount is a community you can come partner with to work on it, right?
I believe
there are
so.
not a bunch of rings to kiss. There's not a big bureaucracy. The community is very flat in that way, right? So the access points, everyone's accessible. If you have a passion, we have the help you need to make it happen. That is a unique trait, right? That's not true in other communities. And I can tell you that in Durham specifically, that trait has changed over time as the community's gotten bigger, and there's been more and more stakeholders and interested parties, right, that have differing views on how to do things, which remains in all communities. But at the end of the day, like, people want to have a community they feel a part of. And I think a lot of the opportunity Rocky Mount sees is, I would say, okay, I hear you that we have a certain amount of people that drive back to Raleigh or otherwise after work. I hear you. I believe that that's not necessarily bad. I feel like we're going to get more and more of that, but I think the big transition we're going to see is that those 2,000 people, I think was the name you said, I think you're going to see another 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people come to stay here because they work somewhere else, they do it virtually, and they can do it here. What we offer is we offer the access to I'm doing this in quotations,
right,
big city, okay? Raleigh's the big city. We offer access to a big city, 45 minutes down the road, but we also offer affordability, quality of life, space, right? Accessibility in terms of being a part of the community, and opportunity, right? All 5 of those things, I can tell you for a fact, aren't offered in some of the bigger cities around us. So, a lot of the people who helped make Raleigh the cultural kind of icon it's become, at some level become disenfranchised over time. Affordability becomes a problem. Everything's too expensive. We know that happens in a capitalistic society. That's something that no one's really figured out how to harness. But being 45 minutes away from that is an amazing access. Now, this is an interesting thing to think about. If I was in downtown Raleigh and I said, all right, Sandy, you drive to American Tobacco and I'm going to drive to Rocky Mount Mills, you would beat me by 10 minutes.
I would have guessed more, actually.
You'd beat me by 10, okay? But you would also be ready to murder somebody because you just drove down 40.
Right.
Right? And I drove down 64, and I feel great. Right? Because I put it on 79 miles an hour, and here we go. We're off, right? The access is so good where we are. Also, the north-south access around 95. I just think the world's our oyster. And at the end of the day, we need to continue to make those investments in our community that make it a place people want to live and thrive. The other thing is, and this is, I've said this from the beginning, Rocky Mount's public projects are just at a very high scale, right? I mean, the library, the event center, the sports complex, I can go through the list. Every time you see the Imperial Center, every time You go into a Rocky Mount public project, I walk and I'm just like, wow, wow. They did a great job with this. And I can tell you every weekend we feel the event center at Rocky Mount Mills. I mean, we feel it big time. We feel the baseball facility every weekend at Rocky Mount Mills. Downtown is starting to feel the effects of the event center. So all these things that we all fight about. Is it good? Is it not good? Is it good? Is it not good? Is it too expensive? Is it not expensive? Da, da, da. All that stuff. I think Rocky Mount's starting to see that the investments they've made in the past really pay off.
Right.
And they really drive that weekend traffic. And the Tiny House Hotel is almost impossible to get into on the weekends because of that. That's great, right? But we need to continue to add to that list of reasons people come to Rocky Mount. And I promise you, if we add to the list of reasons people come to Rocky Mount, we will in turn be adding to the list of the reasons why people live in Rocky Mount. That's kind of the concept.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. In fact, the Event Center, just going to make a little plug for that. It had more than a $15 million impact for us last year, and that number continues to grow. We've seen 77,000 people utilize that facility last year, and it's only getting better. It's only getting better over time, and so I'm hopeful that will continue to be the economic engine that we want it to be, that it was designed to be, and I'm excited and I'm proud of it. I think we've done a lot of great things, a lot of things right, and of course there was a lot of controversy when it was built, but you know what? Public debate is a good thing. It helps refine ideas, it helps change it, it helps make it better if you look at it from that lens. And so what's next for Rocky Mount Mills? I mean, what's the next future development? What are the things that you've got going on?
I
know,
right? We range somewhere between not a lot and a lot. Right. But right now, I'll tell you first and foremost, I'll tell you this: development right now, and this is very hard. Costs, interest rates, and the like make new development just a tricky proposition at this very moment.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean we're not working hard on stuff.
And harder to leverage today than it was last year, for sure.
All of the above is a challenge. All of this makes it hard. We really believe in the residential product we've created. We've shown that there's a market rate need and desire for the rental units. We have a waiting list across the board. People want to live at Rocky Mount Mills. And by the way, some of those people are those 2,000 people a day. We talked about going between, Rocky Mount and likely West, who work here but go somewhere else. And we've heard over the years, this is great. I feel like I have a place here I want to live that provides me what I want. Mm-hmm. So we believe in the residential products. We believe there's going to be more and more opportunity for people who want to live here. And that really is where our focus is on. The office product has been the challenge. I'll be very honest with you.
Right.
But in Durham, the office products become a challenge. We all don't know how people are going to work moving forward. Right. That's a really big question: is how are people going to work? We are a ready, fire, aim group. And one of our greatest ready, fire, aim concepts to date is the brew mill. Mm-hmm. The brewery stuff is continuing to work. It's not without its challenges, but I believe that has really given us that unique spice that really drives people during staycations and otherwise to come check out what Rocky Mount Mills is all about. For the retail and residential and entertainment environment is really where we're core focused right now. We have some big things on the drawing board. Maybe you and I have chatted about it a little bit.
Sure.
That's exciting that we continue to add to the slate of reasons people are going to come to and want to live in Rocky Mount. The world's kind of our oyster. And here's the thing to know about us. We are patient. We don't have to do a deal. We're not sitting on some land that we better develop quickly or else. We can wait a year, we can wait 10 years, we can wait 20 years. Not saying we're doing that, but I'm saying we are patient, and that is a unique thing for a developer. And I say that because I don't look at myself as a developer, but we are patient, and we're going to wait for the right concept at the right time. And if I want people to hear something out of me today, I'd say this: we're open to ideas, we're open to concepts, we're open to partnership, we're open to everything, and we really want to, crowdsource in some ways what the future of Rocky Mount Mills should be.
Right. Well, I think that's outstanding, and I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate again all that you've done. One of the things about the mill that I find is pretty cool is that thing was given a charter from way back in the 1700s. They gave it water rights. They gave it railroad rights. I mean, even the ability to tax and to provide education. Do you guys still have some of those?
Wait, I can tax?
I think you could. I think if I go back,
Let me get my phone.
If I you can check it out, absolutely. Well, good luck on that. But I mean, have you still have the water rights? You still, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Rocky Mount has to release water.
I don't know what they. I mean, they don't really mean anything. But yeah, I mean, I believe we own like a mile of the riverbed in both directions, which
I think that's kind of cool, though. Something that you don't get that anymore. I mean, that's not a traditional deal, and so it goes back.
No. And look, the history of the mill is complex.
Yeah,
and it carries with it a lot of pain, and it carries with it a lot of pride, and it kind of depends on who you're talking to.
Right.
And all. At some level, all perceptions are valid of what the mill means, because when you grow up in Rocky Mount and you drive past that mill as much as you did, you developed a story about what that mill represented. And I talked a little bit about this notion of retelling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think when it closed in 1996 and from 96 through 2010, that mill represented in many people's minds as a closed thing. It represents economic failure. It represents loss of jobs. And one thing we further realized about these big industrial operators, tobacco companies, textile companies, is that, for many people, it was not about my job. It was about my life.
Mm-hmm.
The mill provided my housing. The mill provided my doctor. The mill fed me. At American Tobacco, the mill gave me a carton of cigarettes a week. I don't think we could get away with that anymore. Right?
What was the liability
across, Eastern North Carolina being a target zone here, across Eastern North Carolina, when factories closed, when industrial groups closed, people lost their lives in a lot of ways, right? Every support piece. And one thing that's been really interesting, American Tobacco and Rocky Mount Mills, in both cases, we've done events where like former employees come out and talk, and one thing you can always tell is how proud they were of their time with American Tobacco, with Rocky Mount Mills, and how supported they felt. And they felt a part of something, and they felt a part of a community, and a part of a family in many ways. And so, retelling that and showing, okay, this was this, it then went out, oh no, and now it's being brought back as something else is kind of the next version of what the economic development engine of this piece of real estate should be. Is something that helps people tell our stories. We should all be hired as chief marketing officers for our communities. Mm-hmm. And if we can't talk positively about the community we're in, then I don't know why we live in it. And that has always been something that it's a metric in my mind of I really listen to how people say what they think about their communities. And I can tell you in Rocky Mount, I am feeling the difference of how people talked in 2010 and how people talked in 2023 is very different about their community in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way, right? Durham, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
At some level, Rocky Mount has to develop a swagger.
That's right.
We got to be proud of who we are.
That's right.
We got to carry that with us where we go. We have a swagger. That's right. We're different. We're going to do what we're going to do. And if you don't like it, then don't be here.
Well, go ahead. I mean, that's also a choice.
It sounds like kind of odd, but, communities have to have confidence.
Well, I think you're absolutely right.
For so long, Rocky Mount has felt not confident about what it is or what it wants to be, and it's kind of meek and in the corner and, oh no, right? Be confident. Rocky Mount is a great community.
Oh, it is a fabulous community.
The stuff that's happened is amazing.
No question about it. And look, I look at the mills as the story of Rocky Mount. It's the reason that we're here. It's the reason.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't.
Well, no, the mill. Well, the mill itself, even in its inception, is the reason that Rocky Mountain exists, and then the railroad came to pick up the product that they were generating, and commerce developed around that, and just like our economic history, just like the history of Rocky Mount, you go through a flood, you go through closures of manufacturing facilities, so you have this ebb and flow of financial success and opportunity, and yet has managed to reinvent itself many, 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 many times, and I think that the mills, is a representation of that. You have reinvented it, reimagined what it could be, and I think that is a big part of the story of Rocky Mountain. I celebrate the swagger that you speak of because, I feel it, and I believe that we're there, and I'm excited about the community that we are. I'm excited about our trajectory and where our direction is right now. One of the things that...
By the way, I still get goosebumps when I walk around Rocky Mountain Mills.
I think you should. I think that's awesome. I mean,
I love that place.
Why not?
I mean, I get goosebumps, and then I write a list down for Scott and Evan about everything that's messed up. And send it to them.
And they get goosebumps in a different ways, I guess.
They get goosebumps in the wrong way.
So one of the things I think would be vital, and I'm sure you put some thought into it, but I'm gonna pick your brain here. Connecting the mills to downtown, the event center, and trying to bridge that communication, or not communication, but the transportation piece, I could see as being mutually beneficial and advantageous for us. What kind of thoughts have you guys been thinking around that? How do you create that flow? How do you create?
Yeah, number one is we got to get that rail to trail work done.
Right.
With the rail bed that could connect it. I mean, that's a short walk connector that in itself makes a huge difference. Because right now we are literally next door neighbors, but we don't visit each other very much. Is the feel I get, right? It's not right. I mean, it's my next door neighbor that I got to get into my car and drive to.
Sure.
That doesn't make him much of a neighbor.
No, and it's not far.
I would suggest, we're also in many ways the front door of downtown. A lot of people going to downtown are coming through Rocky Mountain Mills, and that connection is vital. I mean, that is vital. We have to figure out how to do it better. I mean, again, that rail to trail conversion, big deal, but also how walkable are our streets? How bike friendly are our streets? Should we be talking about, running trams and otherwise? And we need to be doing so knowing that for the first year, it probably won't be ridden.
Right.
I mean, it ain't going to work day one.
Right.
We have to be looking at long-term investments, just like y'all have and what y'all done and what we've done and what we've done. What are the long-term investments we make to create that connection, knowing that connection is not easy to make?
Right.
That's also a vital community that exists between downtown and Rocky Mountain Mills, and how do we help that and preserve that in many ways, and there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, we got our 100-acre little island, the peninsula.
Yeah. And
we spend a lot of time head down in that peninsula trying to figure out what to do, because there's a lot to do. And sometimes you kind of lose the bigger picture, the bigger scope of where you're trying to connect you to. But if you got my head up to 50,000 feet, I would tell you that our futures are intertwined.
There's no question about that. There's no question about that.
We're not competitive at all. We're not competitive.
No.
We are attached. I mean, our fates are tied.
Everybody's offering a different service, and you want that flow. The flow is what creates the opportunity, to build the various mousetraps to be able to catch the dollars, and that's really what we're talking about here, and to create that experience, that user experience. The mill's great. You want to grab a beer, maybe a quick snack, some food. It's awesome. It's a change of pace, but you're not necessarily wanting to live there either.
Right.
You're wanting to try different things, and to some degree that benefits the mill to have another venue that's close by. So who knows? This year is the year of the trail in North Carolina, so surely we can hopefully find some additional dollars to create that Monk to Mill Trail, and because I think that would be impactful. Absolutely, it would. We have opened up some bike lanes, and so I'm encouraged to see that.
Yeah.
Haven't seen as many cyclists.
The softening of that road is huge.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I would spend time at night thinking, oh my God, when is someone going to get run over? So softening that road, slowing that road, adding the parallel parking, adding the bike lanes is a huge change to the flow and the feel of the entire area. So thank y'all for making that happen. That was very important, because otherwise I felt like we were in the middle of a freeway.
Well, you were. I mean, I love it. It was posted for 35 miles an hour, but I bet you the 55 was probably the more normal speed up and down that road. I mean, really and truly.
Oh yeah. You were looking way down to determine if you're going to cross or not. Way down.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, look, we're running out of time here. What have I not asked you that you want to highlight about the mill that is something that folks would be interested, or something you want to kind of share?
Just keep coming out, find new things. There's a lot of things to do. You know, our goal at any of our projects is that every time you come here, you discover something different. You try something different. You see something different. Maybe it's just a piece of art that got moved around, or maybe it's a new way we set something up, or it's a new tenant, or it's a new restaurant, or a new brewery, or even a new type of beer within a brewery, right? There's always new stuff. The goal is to never be repetitive. We always talk about, hey, how do you stay top of the fold when you're a project that is of a certain vintage? You know, right. We are coming up on 5, 6, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, I think. In American Tobacco, I always get confused. I mean, in American Tobacco, we are ready for this. We're coming up on 20 years since we opened American Tobacco.
Has it been 20 years?
But, like, I think we've done a good job because people still talk about it like it's a relatively new thing.
Well, I remember downtown Durham when there were tumbleweeds down there. And the only thing that was there was the police department, NC Mutual Insurance, and that was it. And the hardware store. I can't remember the name of the hardware store, but that was it. I mean, nothing.
In the words of Mayor Bell,
yeah,
the only reason people came downtown was to throw rocks through windows. That's what he used to say.
Well, then there was the Rice Diet place that had the barbed wire around the old motel.
The Rice Diet, yeah, that's a flood zone problem now. There's the Duke Rice Diet thing. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it's very different. It's very different. But you know what? Doesn't solve everything. Durham has its share of problems.
Sure, but the point is,
healthy share of problems.
But I think the point is, it's transformational. It's occurring. Change is constant, and that's something we should be celebrating and certainly recognizing that is the deal. There's always an opportunity to pivot, always a chance to change direction. But the whole point is, you want to try to create something new, fresh, something that is creating a better community for us all to live in. And so, I want to thank you.
And how's the community thinking forward, right?
Exactly.
How's the community thinking about what's happening right now and projecting out 20, 25, 30, 35 years to do the things it needs to do to make sure that the horse doesn't get out of the barn somehow, right? That it's considering the future and everything it does, and long-term thinking is gonna win the day here.
Amen. And look, I want to thank you for being a long-term investor, a long-term partner, and a great corporate citizen. And I thank you so much for what you're doing, have done, and continue to do. And I really appreciate your time here today.
I appreciate you, Sandy.